All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium. Mark Archie, the voice of the Mustangs, here with Neil Fisher from the Apopka Chief, and we are getting ready to go in just about 5 minutes. We'll be getting things started with the welcome, the starting lineups, the national anthem, and all of the pomp and circumstance that comes with Friday Night Lights as we get ready to get a little bit of athletic action done here before we all hunker down for the hurricane that's coming our way. Fortunately, it slowed down enough that we are in perfect safety for tonight, and we're not going to have to start looking to those serious preparations and closures until over the weekend. But Neil, the Mustangs coming off of a big win, a come from behind, kind of a late start for the Mustangs in last week's contest against Winter Park, but they turned on the afterburners at the right time, scored 35 unanswered points, and then cruised to victory. And we saw a little bit of an unexpected lineup change. Brendan Sear taking over the starting quarterback duties for the Mustangs, but once he got his legs under him, he seemed to settle into that role pretty comfortably.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, Mark. First of all, like you mentioned, Wekiva fell behind 14-0 before rallying for the victory. Of course, we are looking at a new era of Wekiva Mustang football as 17 of the 22 starters are no longer with the team. And the biggest, that of course creates a number of storylines going into the first regular season game. The most obvious, tangible, but even more so, the biggest subplot which contributed to the character of the game was, of course, Sear taking over as the starting QB. He's about 6'6", 220 pounds. And really what happened is that first quarter and a half when Wekiva fell behind 14-0, the offense just felt like an automobile transmission that's just not quite, the gears just quite aren't meshing or syncing together. They didn't really do anything bad, but you didn't really feel like they were fitting together quite right, and there wasn't any proficiency or efficiency. In the meantime, Winter Park took advantage of some poor special teams play, which allowed them to get that 14 points, 3 kick returns of at least 35 yards, and suddenly they're behind 14-0. So, but to Sear's credit, and like I said, as the game progressed, and really the light bulb turned on about halfway through that second quarter, the execution of the strengths without deliberation so increased while the hesitation decreased. And of course, really, I really felt the turning point, it might even be the turning point of the season, was right before halftime, the last possession. About 5 minutes were left. Wekiva game started that drive. They went 60 yards in 13 plays. It wasn't anything spectacular. They just didn't do anything that put them in a bad position. They kept gaining about 4 yards, and they went into the end zone. They cut the lead to 14-7. And again, that was important, not only because it meant the gain of the tangible momentum of cutting the lead in half going into the second half, but it also allowed Wekiva, they kind of had a blueprint as far as what they were doing, like what the character of the offense was, what they should do and what they shouldn't, what their strengths and weaknesses were.
So now the Mustangs will be playing against West Orange. This is a rivalry game that we see every year, but what's different this year is that it's not a district game. The Mustangs were reclassified down one classification, so they are now no longer in the same district as West Orange, but thanks to the FHSAA's new point system, this game really counts almost as much as any other, since only the district champion is guaranteed a spot, and even among district champions, your overall point standings Apologies for the interruption there. We had the camera disconnect. But as I had started to say to Neil, this is an important game for the Mustangs, in spite of the fact that it is no longer a district game because of the point system that the FHSAA instituted. So even though these two teams, West Orange has a different coaching staff, both teams have a lot of players that have turned over due to graduation and other factors, and of course Wekiva being reclassified doesn't really change the significance of this game. But we're going to go down to the field right now because the clock is running out here, and we are getting ready to start. once again. Welcome back to Mustang Field, where we welcome you back. If we lost you for a few minutes, we had some technical challenges with our live stream, but we are back now, and the Mustangs getting on the board with a field goal after a fumbled snap ended the attempt to get the Mustangs into the end zone. They started with excellent field position, got a couple of first downs in a row, and managed to get 3 points out of it, so Wekiva strikes first.
Yes, Mark, that was a 9-play drive, pretty much the exact start up until that fumble that any coach would want.
Scott on the carry, Shane Gibson on the carry. Scott on the tackle, a gain of 4 yards on the play, and that'll bring up 2nd and 6 for the Warriors from the Mustang 47-yard line.
So that last drive was 9 plays, took about half of the first quarter, and the 2 really important plays were pass completions by Brendan Sayre. Well on target, nice lead passes into the receiver.
Jerome Shaw on the carry for the Warriors. Stopped by Terry Foster and Nathan Painter of the Mustang defense. No gain on the play, but a loss of 1. 3rd and 7 coming up for the Warriors.
So we didn't get a chance to talk about it during the pregame show, Mark, but the defense has really come up big here in both of the games so far. As we got a scramble here.
And it looks like Calvez is going to get away from the Mustang defense.
Jay Calvez through the middle for a QB keeper, and get the ball down to the 30-yard line. It's enough for a Warrior first down.
Where is it? How many yards?
18, I think. 17.
So no sooner did I talk about the defense and they give up that long gain there.
And the QB keep for the Warriors. Jay Calvez 30 yards into the end zone for a Warrior touchdown.
And what I was saying there, Mark, was, of course, the defense has really been the face of the program, the Wekiva program, for the last 3 years. So even though they have 17 of 22 starters who are no longer with the team, the questions, really, most of the questions were directed towards the defense, and they've come up big in the first 2 games, giving up only 10 and 14 yards. However, looks like West Orange found a weakness there. First, with the QB keep, I'm sure that Coach Bedesom, who is also the defensive coordinator, will address that. But really, West Orange was unable to get anything going until they went to the QB keeper there. 17 yards straight up the middle for Calvez, and then 31 on the next play going around the end. Just great seal blocking there on the edge of the defensive line, allowing Calvez to get to the corner and turn upfield first and take a 7-3 lead with 4:21 left. So really, as we get ready to exchange the possessions here, Wekiva about to receive the kickoff. The difference has been that one miscue by Wekiva, the fumble on the snap when they had the ball in on the 2-yard line. Looked like they were going to go in there, and you know, of course, you don't have to be a football guru to understand when you fumble the ball inside the 5, that's going to kill your momentum.
8 from the 9, stop by. Stop by 33.
John Coleman makes the return from the 9-yard line out to the 35. It's a 26-yard return, stopped by John Coleman. And the Warriors. Stopped by Deshaun Jones. Coleman on the return, and the Mustangs will start at the 35.
34.
So, up in
Amari Thomas on the carry for the Mustangs. Paulius on the stop for the Warriors.
Gain 3.
A gain of 3 on the play brings up 2nd and 7 for the Mustangs from the 39.
So that's Albert's first ball carry of this game. Pretty much the rushing attack has been all Chad Davis, Thomas, and Preston.
10 for 86.
And there you see again, like we talked about during the first quarter and a half of the game last week against Winter Park, very indicative. Just looked like they just weren't quite on the same page there.
Brandon Sears' pass intended for Rolante Reed is broken up by Jaden Floyd. The ball's incomplete, brings up 3rd and 6 for the Mustangs.
So obviously a critical 3rd down, need to convert here, get that 1st down. If for no other reason than you just don't want West Orange to have another opportunity to build on the momentum.
Larry Thomas on the carry, the stop made by Tyson Schwabach.
Now Wekiva's going no huddle.
34. 42 on the stop.
So Wekiva tried twice there to catch West Orange off guard with no huddle to no avail, no gain.
Amari Thomas on the carry, the stop made by Jones Paulius. No gain on that play. And it will turn the ball over on downs to the Warriors.
So again, now Wekiva cannot afford to have a miscue here on their special teams like they did against Winter Park during the early stages. Obviously, in any situation, but I think even more so in this particular situation. Again, West Orange has the momentum. You don't want to be able to build on it and give them some freebies here.
Intended for 11.
Julian Collins's pass is intended for Matthew McDoom. Broken up by Johnny Cheney, and it falls incomplete. 2nd and 10 coming up for the Warriors from the Mustang 44-yard line.
So yeah, Neil, to your point, Warriors winning the field possession game, and this is kind of a repeat of what we saw last week at Winter Park in the first half, that field possession can make a real difference.
QB keeper by Julian Calvez, stopped by Simeon McCall.
How many yards? 8.
33 stop?
Yeah, 20.
How many yards?
They've got Foster on the stop. The ball is spotted at the 33-yard line, which is a gain of 11 and good for a Warrior 1st down.
In trouble, going all the way to the side. He finds his man.
Pass is complete.
Pushed out by 27.
From Calvez to Huff. Stop made by Foster, and we have a flag on the play.
So again, as we wait for the penalty, the refs to tell us what the penalty is, it's going to be against West Orange. Looks like West Orange has found a weakness, rolling Calvez out there, giving him the option to run or pass.
And here's the signal.
Final touch, called against the Warriors.
Eddie McDoom, who did catch that pass, which ultimately did not count, Matt McDoom. He's actually the younger brother of Eddie McDoom, who's playing up at Michigan, starring there with West Orange a few years ago.
Penalty is 5 yards from the previous spot. It brings up 1st and 15 from the 38.
So Wekiva catching something of a break there. See if they can
Getting
build
under
on it.
pressure.
Intended for 11.
Pass from number 8, Calvez, intended for Matthew McDoom, is incomplete.
Did you see that coverage?
So we didn't get a chance to talk about it here at the beginning of the game, but West Orange, as you probably noticed, is a very high-octane offense, very much like Winter Park. They put up 34 points in both of their games, preseason kickoff class against DeLand, and then the season opener last week against
the pass is picked up by Mustangs, number 22, Tony Newsom.
So last week, Olympia was the opponent, and there you see a great defensive play by Newsom, just great anticipation and being aggressive, taking that first step towards the ball. Again, I don't think you need to be a football guru to understand the importance. West Orange was really finding a groove there on offense, especially with Calvez rolling now.
Carries, 5-6 on the stop.
Brendan Sear with a QB keep. The stop is made for the Warriors by number 56, Brendan Flakes. A gain of 4 on the play, and that puts the ball at the 31-yard line for 2nd and 6.
So again, last week we saw a lot of that same type of offense there. 4 or 5 yards solid, nothing spectacular, no risk, just keep the ball moving forward. Whoa.
7 forced it. 16 recovered.
Who ran? 2.
Ball is at the 34-yard line for a gain of 3 after a fumble was forced by Tyson Schwalbach. Mustangs remain in control.
34, stop by 5-6.
Larry Thomas on the carry. The tackle is made by Brendan Flakes. And that will move the ball to the 36-yard line, and it brings up 4th down and 2.
Who ran that? 34. So again, Wekiva going to the rushing by committee. 4 different ball carriers up to this point in the ball game. And they're going again for the first down on 4th. Preston coming in. The former quarterback,
33 on the
Wildcat.
Larry
Preston with the QB keep. Jashari Jones makes the stop, but not before the Mustangs get to the 38-yard line. They needed 2 yards, and they picked up just exactly that. It's a Mustang first down, and that's going to take us to the end of the first quarter. Mustangs in control. They'll have 1st and 10 after we switch sides. And the Warriors lead 7-3 at the end of 12 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Dr. Baptiste and his team at Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium for their fantastic support, as always, of our Mustang athletic programs. They are now the proud owners of not 1, not 2, but 3 offices, including a more convenient location than ever, right in downtown Apopka, across from Kitland Nelson Park. Give them a call today. We also want to make sure, if you are not already doing so, that you are following us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Wekiva Sports. We are live streaming tonight's game on at Wekiva Sports. We're also live streaming on the NFHS network, so if you have any friends or family who are not able to join us in person tonight, make sure you let them know that we are live streaming. And if they are not in a position to view the full live stream, they can also get a live scoreboard or live stats from our website, WekivaMustangs.com. All those links online at WekivaMustangs.com. We also have information posted about Hurricane Dorian and the fact that schools will be closed for at least Tuesday starting tomorrow. We'll be continuing to post updates there as they are released by the county.
So Wekiva keeps possession of the ball there again, rushing by committee.
Pass intended for Javon Coleman, broken up by Jones Polynice. 2nd and 10.
So again, I'd really say right now turnovers have been the story of this game as far as preventing both teams from really being able to take control offensively, Mark.
Yeah, Neil, we've seen like Mustangs develop a lot of momentum and then promptly lose it.
And the same for West Orange as well.
He's got an open. Oh, that's well overthrown.
Pass is picked off by Joseph Stravano at the 28-yard line.
Who intercepted?
9.
So both teams now have uncorked an interception. The difference is Wekiva also fumbled the ball at the 2-yard line when it looked like they were about to score the first touchdown. They had to settle for a field goal. And again, as I started to talk about last time, before Wekiva came up with an interception, West Orange is a high-octane offense. They've scored 34 points in both of their games. The preseason kickoff classic was against against Bishop Moore. And last week in the season opener, they took on Olympia, who will be Wekiva's opponent next week. And as we mentioned in the last couple of possessions, West Orange is going more and more to the basically QB option, rolling Calvez out and giving him the decision to...
Calvez on the QB keep, and he is stopped by Tony Newsom for no gain, 7-10.
Calvez with the option of either throwing or running the ball. And at least for now, it looks like Wekiva's adjusted on that first drive in which, well, really the only drive which West Orange has scored on. Calvez ate Wekiva up. He had a couple of runs over 10 yards and a pass over 10 yards.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to remind you that you can get your score, schedules, and more on our website, WekivaMustangs.com. And you'll also find there that we've gone ahead and canceled all of the events for Tuesday. We'll let you know if we have any further changes for the rest of the week. Of course, the Mustangs are looking forward to hosting Olympia next Friday, provided conditions are safe to do so. Make sure again that you're following Wekiva Sports on Twitter and Facebook for updates, and we'll also post those at WekivaMustangs.com. But again, barring any changes to the schedule, we are looking forward to hosting the Olympia Titans next week, Friday, September 6th at 7 p.m. right here at Baptist Orthodontic Stadium.
So with 11:02 left before halftime, just to quote Coach Benison, as far as the depth,
8-3, pushed out by 1.
Pass is complete to Jalen Collins. Larry Preston on the stop, and it's good for a Warrior first down across midfield into Mustang territory at the 49.
8-13.
so Coach Bedison said the skilled positions aren't just manned by players with a high level of skills. Amount of those players is deep as well. We are facing the same opponent as last week in that sense. Of course, last week, as we mentioned several times, the opponent for Wekiva was Winter Park.
Down by 36, 8 on the carry.
And even more specifically, how Winter Park and West Orange attack opponents growing out of having the opportunity to utilize a deep set of skilled players is the same. And like you said, so far we've seen that here.
So 36 on the sack.
I don't know if I call that a sack. He didn't touch him.
Ball is back to the 44-yard line of Warrior territory for a loss of 7 on the play. Another QB keep by Julian Collins.
41 on the sack. It's a loss.
That was a sack.
Loss of 1. 41 on the sack.
Nathan Blair credited with a sack there for a loss of 1 yard on the play. It brings up 3rd and 18 for the Warriors from their 43-yard line.
So again, for those of you who are not familiar with the Wekiva defense, there's remaining a 3-4. That's been the bread and butter during the last 3 years. Great defensive play there.
Well, it's intended to be 11 mountain McKim. It's nearly caught before being stripped away by Antoine Johnson. The pass is really incomplete.
So again, great reading of that play by Johnson, but even more so, what made that play incomplete was the timing, getting his hand in at just the right moment there to separate the receiver from the ball.
And so the Warriors will have to kick the ball away.
So
8:57 on the clock. Mustangs get another possession here.
That was not a smart play there. Should have let that ball go. Would have rolled into the end zone. Lost about 10 yards there on the giving up that touchback.
Is he the punter was?
I would think so.
So before we begin Wekiva's drive here, real quickly, Calvez has been somewhat effective. He certainly was effective on the drive, which ended with a touchdown. With his rushing, he's gained 67 yards here, but he is only 1 of 6, and he has an interception. So in the meantime, Wekiva also, they continue to use the spread as they have in years past. Offset, running back lining up to the right, that's Chad Davis. And again, a lot of power running here for Wekiva. That's pretty much how they set up their pass.
21 on the stop.
Who was the quarterback?
Two was. Gain of 5 to the shot.
So gain of 5 there, nothing fancy, straight up the middle, good one-on-one blocking.
Chad Davis picks up 5 on the carry. Tyler Jones had the stop.
Good one-on-one blocking there by the interior lineman, setting up a solid 5 yards.
66 among others. On the stop.
Chad Davis again on the carry for the Mustangs. Lexon Coleman leading his teammates to the defensive tackle, but it's not before the Mustangs pick up a first down. Ball spotted at the 21-yard line.
So as you just mentioned, Mark, 2 rushes, 11 yards, exactly the kind of start to a possession any coach is looking for. Does also get them out of the shadow of their end zone there.
Stop by 90 among others. 16 on the carry.
Right into a QB keep, and he'll pick up 3 yards that way before being tackled by number 90, Daniel Harrington.
And so far, Wekiva's not doing anything fancy. No passes. They're not even rushing the ball outside the tackles. Right now, I believe they threw Sayre in there as the rusher, just a change of pass. And no sooner do I say no passes, they go to a nice bubble screen there. Good execution. Good decision making by Sayre, waiting for the receiver to open up.
Gain of 14 yards on the completion from Brendan Sayre to Jamal Coleman. It's good for the Mustang. First down. And out to Chad Davis. That's good for back-to-back first downs for the Mustangs. Stop made by Daniel Harrington.
Davis.
16 on the game.
16 yards.
1-6.
16 ran it.
No, 16 yards on the carry.
Okay, 2 for 16.
2.
Chad Davis again on the carry for the Mustangs. This time stopped by Damian Rangel. And that's a gain of 5 on the play. 7-5 coming up in Warrior territory from the 41.
And now, Mark, we're seeing a repeat here as far as the strategy and the tactics as Wekiva had on their first possession, going mostly with the rush, but throwing in that pass at just the right moment. And again, when you're ripping off 5 yards at a time, running the ball straight up the middle, you're pretty much in a show me you can stop me mode.
This time, Murray Thomas is on the carry, and he's stopped by Rangel again. And gets the ball down to the 35-yard line. It's a gain of 6, and it's good for a Mustangs first down. And we'll pause here as we have reached the midpoint of the second quarter, so we'll pause for an official timeout.
So again, Wekiva's also using their committee very effectively. 4 different runners, 4 different players that rushed the ball. And this is a very important drive, but it's also been impressive so far, taking over possession from the 10-yard line. So this will be the 8th play of the drive, Mark.
34. How about 42?
Thomas again with the carry there.
Amari Thomas carries for the Mustangs. Very nice on the stop, and that's good for a gain of 6 yards. Puts the ball at the 29-yard line. 2nd and 4.
So the shortest gain so far on this play, Mark, on this drive, Mark, has been 3 yards. The next shortest has been 5.
34.
And we're going to get a big gain here. Again, going straight up the middle.
Amari Thomas on the carry for the Mustangs. Joseph Stradano makes the stop at 9-4. Wekiva picks up a Mustang first down. Ball spotted inside the red zone at the 18-yard line, 1st and 10.
We ran that pretty quick. So 3 straight runs here by Thomas, Mark. And it looks like going to Thomas is paying its dividends. We're going to get a 4th straight run. Nice little dip there to the left and then cut back to the right at the line.
Gain of 7.
Amari Thomas on the carry, tackled by Daniel Harrington. A gain of 7, 2nd and 2 coming up.
And Wekiva remains with the no huddle.
2 and 3.
Pass intended for Javon Coleman, falls incomplete. It brings up 3rd and 2 for the 10-yard line.
So the good news for Wekiva after that play is that they are in definitely field goal range, can cut into that lead. Of course, we want to see a touchdown. Some more great blocking up front there. Just getting those shoulders down and driving the defensive lineman back, especially when the ball carrier reaches the line.
And it's here on the QB keep. Alex Wells makes the stop. Mustangs pick up the first down. They're stopped short of the goal line. Now it's 1st and goal from about the 7-yard line.
So again, Wekiva not doing anything fancy, just relying on fundamentals of the game here, as coaches would like to say. We ran that.
Chad Davis on the Mustang carry, stopped by Alex Wells.
44 among others.
And Brandon Sear, the QB keep, stopped by a number of Warriors. Led by Alex Wells, that puts the ball at the 2-yard line, 3rd and goal.
So now as Brandon Sear comes over, talks to Coach Coach Hurd, he's the offensive coordinator. And yes.
33 on the stop.
No call here yet, Mark. Again, just straight up the middle. Trying to get those shoulders lower than the defensive line, the offensive line that is.
Larry Preston on the QB keep, stopped just short of the goal line by Jashari Jones, and it brings up 4th and goal.
All right, Neil, so what's the smart play here? You're down by 4.
Well, I think you got to roll the dice here and go for it. You're at the 1-yard line, and you've been physically taking care of business up front.
The Mustangs will request their first time out of the first half.
What was the amount of yards for the last 2 plays?
A total of 5. I'm not sure what the split is, though.
So, yeah, Mark, if I'm Coach Bedison, I roll my dice here. You got 2:46 before halftime. Even if you don't get the ball into the end zone, you're still forcing West Orange into a situation of having to move the ball 99 yards. And, of course, they're going against Wekiva's defense.
We'll take this opportunity to remind you of our upcoming events. Olympia is scheduled for next week, provided, of course, that we don't have any interference from anyone named Dorian. Then the Mustangs go on a 3-week road trip to East River, then Ocoee, and then Edgewater before they're back home to face Dr. Norris on October 4th. We have the complete schedule on our website, McConnellMustangs.com.
And at the 1 yard line, I don't think we're going to see anything fancy there. Wekiva yet to run the ball past the tackles.
That's the script.
Stop by 42.
Good carry.
2 carries, stop by 42.
Well, Mark, things.
Chad Davis on the carry for the Mustangs. Paulus makes the stop, and that will turn the ball over on downs for the Mustangs. Warriors take over at their own 2-yard line.
Hey, if you let it be, you won't look so bad.
So Wekiva on 10+ rushes was able to get that push at the line of scrimmage, get the shoulders down, and drive the D-line back. When they needed it on that one last play there, they could not do that. The defensive line, the center of that defensive line got in right away and collapsed the offensive line. Just nowhere for Davis to run as he ran straight up the middle there. Now again, as I said, I really don't see any need that you would need to rush the ball past the tackles as far as taking the rush to the edge. But I do think perhaps you would have been a little bit better served if you at least thrown in some variety there, maybe try to run behind the tackles instead of the center.
Part of the play, delay of game called against the Warriors, about half the distance to the goal.
So of course the good news there for West Orange is they're at the 2-yard line. So how much can you really be backed up?
The procedure is called against the Warriors offense. That's a penalty of about 3 inches, and a replay of first down.
Was that 2 penalties? So also, just keep in mind here as we have 2 minutes and 38 seconds left, both teams are relying on the no huddle.
Get out. 41 in the stop.
Number 21.
21, we have
I got 41 on the stop.
Number 41, Nathan Pierre makes the tackle in the end zone, and the Mustangs pick up a safety.
And that's why I said to roll the dice here, you're looking at a 99-yard difference to the end zone.
No, 42 I think or 22 is superior.
Let's go.
And of course, Mark, the benefit of this, not only do you get the 2 points, but Wekiva gets possession of the ball. There's 2 minutes 31 seconds. And they get a free kick. The West Orange will have to punt it. You don't kick off after a safety. So that play there looked pretty much like the 4th down play when Wekiva was trying to push the ball into the end zone from the 1-yard line. The middle of the defensive line just collapsed the middle of the offensive line. Ball carrier had nowhere to run to. Very quick after that snap was taken, almost instantaneously, the defensive line was in the backfield of West Orange.
8-3 are back.
I thought they had to punt it after a
Give me
snap.
one.
Huh? So what'd you say?
26 on the stop.
Who kicked it?
8 caught it.
Who kicked it?
I didn't see.
Okay, well, excuse me, folks. I was wrong. You don't have to punt the ball, so please forgive me again. It was a free kick, though, which means Wekiva cannot charge the ball. They'll take over here at the 35.
Stop the ball, no safety.
2:21 before halftime. And they go back to that pounding ground.
Stop by 2.
2 by 2.
Correction, 2 by 7. 2 stopped by 7.
Chad Davis on the Mustangs carry, stopped by Tyson Schwalbach after a gain of 1, maybe 2 yards on the play. Second down.
34. Stop by 7 again. No gain.
So now facing 3rd and long here. Another trend that's developed here is since that interception thrown by Sears, Wekiva's gone very conservative. Of course, Sears started off 2 for 2, had over 30 yards on that first drive, and then he threw the interception. Again, great defensive pressure there by West Orange. Not really allowing Sears. I know he was frustrated there, felt like he could get out of the pocket, but I think that would have been a tall task even if he hadn't slipped.
Ryan Sears slips on the carry, and that'll be a loss of 1 to 2 yards, taking the ball back to the original line of scrimmage, and it brings up 4th and 10 for the Mustangs with $1:13 remaining in the half.
So, Mark, we have to give West Orange credit there, coming up with a big defensive series. That could have been huge, could have definitely been a kick to the gut to West Orange there. Wekiva coming off that momentum. Like I mentioned, anytime a team gets a safety, it's not just the momentum of scoring, it's also the momentum of being able to assert a force of will.
21's back.
Being able to get into that background there and tackle big, strong men in the end zone. Ooh. Wekiva catches a bit of a break there with that bounce. Not a particularly good kick. And we're going to have a return for a touchdown. We saw that last week against Winter Park. We mentioned that they had 3 kick returns of at least 35 yards, which set them up in excellent field position during the first quarter and a half, but all 3 of those, to be even more specific, were 35 yards because the kick returner was able to get to the outside, and again, that's what set up that touchdown.
67 yards.
Tyler Jones returns the punt 67 yards into the end zone for a Warrior touchdown with 53 seconds remaining in the first half.
What's the number?
17 kicker, which is 95 on your roster.
Riley Bullard's extra point is up and good, and so the Warriors extend their lead to 14-5 with 53 seconds remaining in the second quarter.
So, Mark, we've been talking about the momentum here. Wekiva's had a couple of opportunities to take advantage of building on momentum. However, not only does West Orange gain the momentum there with that kick return, but they pretty much make Wekiva pay for not taking advantage of having the opportunity or converting the opportunity for gaining momentum.
Yeah, so what could have been a real momentum builder for Wekiva, especially given the safety and the circumstances that led up to it, now instead turns into negative momentum.
Yeah, and that momentum also comes from the fact that it's one play, it's quick, you know, just kind of that lightning quick kick to the gut play feeling. So Wekiva does have 45 seconds here to at least stem some of that tide as far as the momentum. Of course, like I mentioned, since Sears threw that interception.
Jermaine Coleman on the return. Stop is made by Wells on the 30-yard line.
And since Sears threw that interception at the beginning of the second quarter, Wekiva's kept the play close to the vest. They've only tried 2 passes, and they're going to keep it that way. Looks like they're going to go into halftime settling for being down 14-5. Don't want to take a chance here.
Chad Davis on the carry. Brendan Flakes makes the stop for the Warriors. No gain on the play. Perhaps a gain of 2. Second inning coming up for the Mustangs.
And with 20 seconds here, it looks like Wekiva's just going to run it one more time. Nope, oh, what do you know? I'm wrong. They're going to pass it now.
Pass intended from Lee Carter is tipped by Tyson Schwalbach and falls incomplete. That brings up third inning for the Mustangs with less than 20 seconds.
2.
And that's going to do it for the first half. Again, I'm not quite sure why you throw a pass on second down but rush on third. Nonetheless, like I said, Wekiva will go into the second half playing very conservative on offense since that interception thrown by Sayre.
Chad Davis on the final play of the half, and he's stopped by Jason Floyd, and that's going to take us to halftime with the Warriors leading the Mustangs 14-5.
7 yards.
Yeah, how long would have that last run have been?
Last run was 6.
6.
So, Mark, we go into halftime here, and I really think you can say both teams have had their share of mistakes, but West Orange has made a couple less mistakes, and they've taken advantage of those couple less mistakes. It's resulted in 2 more scores.
Hey, tell him it's all that gold in that package.
Ladies and gentlemen, we direct your attention to the field where we are proud to present the 2019 West Orange High School Warrior Band. The West Orange High School Band, under the direction of Kenneth Boyd, Robert Cron, and Garth Steger. Drum majors this year for the Warrior Marching Band are Natalie Gordon, Xavier Henry, and Erica Wetmore. The Warrior Marching Band's 2019 halftime show is From the New World, featuring the music of Dvorak and Bjork. And now, as we get set, please welcome the one and the only West Orange High School Warrior Band.
Splattering of applause, please.
I can do that. Drum majors, are you ready?
That was so good.
What am I doing?
first out. Oh, wow. It is different. Is this different than last year? Oh, I don't need to do that. Is this a different photo? Huh. Three for 6.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a West Orange Warrior Marching Band. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Baptiste Orthodox Stadium. Now entering the field for halftime entertainment, your Wekiva High School Marching Mustangs. The band is under the direction of Mr. Joshua Grosnicross, the color guard under the direction of Mr. Michael McLeod, the marching texts are Mr. James Johnson and Mr. Frank Taylor, the percussion instructor is Mr. Robert Cross, the band is conducted by drum majors Lila Allen and Amaria Patrick. The band captain is Antonio Martinez, the first lieutenant is Alyssa Sanchez, the second lieutenant is Caleb Edwards, the drum captains are Jacob Saris and Jonathan Williams, and the drum captain is Shauna Demalspain. Tonight the band will be performing Distorted, the first selection from their 2019 show Fusion, featuring music from Cirque du Soleil. Drum majors, Lila Allen and Maria Patrick. Is the band ready? Thank you. Please begin your halftime performance. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, your Wekiva High School Marching Mustangs. Presenting our generous sponsors for the season, the Center for Reproductive Medicine, the printers, Music to Mind, Corona Risk Management, and all of our fabulous band parents for their wonderful support.
So, Neil, another strong defensive performance for the Mustangs, but a few lapses in judgment have left Wekiva with a 9-point deficit at the end of our opening 24 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. If you look at the statistics here, Wekiva should be ahead by at least 2 scores. They have a 179 to 83 advantage in total yards, and first downs are 10-5. Again, mistakes. It's not just the fact that Wekiva's made more mistakes, it's the fact of the impact. Of course, we talked about this at the beginning last week, the season opener. Winter Park took advantage of Wekiva's poor play on special teams, at least for the first quarter and a half. It allowed them to set up, Winter Park that is, to set up better field position. Their average starting position during the first quarter and a half or so was Wekiva's 39. It was their own 28 after that, and that really allowed Winter Park to take a 14-0 lead. We've seen that same thing here. We've seen 2 punt returns. Obviously, the one that really sticks out is the one return for a touchdown there right before halftime. That was with 53 seconds. But generally speaking, West Orange, every time that they are in a situation where they could really find themselves in a hole to dig out of, they've been able to create at least decent field position, starting field position with their returns.
Yeah, and so Neil, it's as we come back to the press box here and get ready for the second half, what will Wekiva need to change to regroup and be able to compete and make up this 2-score deficit that they've gotten themselves into?
Well, obviously, like I just talked, their special teams has to improve. You can't let a team run when you get a team deep in their own side of the field, you can't let them get out of that poor field position with special teams. But also, Wekiva had that first drive. They drove all the way down the field. They got to the 2-yard line, and then there was a fumble on the snap, which just absolutely, killed the drive. They were able to get a field goal, take a 3-0 lead. But you really look at it in the sense of that was 4 points that West Orange prevented. Wekiva didn't score that 8-point turnaround. So, and then they had another field fumble. Again, they were driving about midway through that second quarter. And again, it was a very Wekiva character drive. Very methodical, very deliberate. They had only thrown 2 passes out of 10 plays. They were just pounding the ball straight up the middle, physically exerting themselves. And when they physically exert themselves, you're also exerting your force of will. And then they fumbled, even though they didn't lose it. That absolutely killed it. So I would say right now, Wekiva has actually played the better game as far as the quality of play, the impact, really being able to do what they do well as far as the strengths, and not really having to rely on the weaknesses. But it's been the half dozen or so mistakes. Of course, I just mentioned the two tangible and obvious ones, which were the fumbles and the kick and the punt return for a touchdown. But there have been some other subtle ones like missing tackles and also missing blocking assignments, going to the wrong guy to block, which allows the defense to be able to get into the backfield and cause those fumbles. So it's been the mistakes. And again, tonight has really been the textbook definition of the old cliche or saying that 90% of all games are lost, not won.
Yeah, so when Wekiva gets into their rhythm, they have been successful. Just those few lapses have left them again at a 14-5 deficit going into the second half. As we get ready to return to the field here, the Mustangs will get the ball first to open up the second half, so they'll have an opportunity to go ahead and get that momentum returning to their favor as soon as possible, getting into the third quarter. Then again, we're hoping that we're going to have 2 home games in a row, weather permitting, before the Mustangs get on that 3-game road trip. Where we're going to be on the road for 3 consecutive weeks before we finally come home to host Dr. Phillips, and then we've got homecoming and senior night back-to-back as we get into the back half of the season. So let's head back to the field.
And Mark, I'd also like to point out here too, we mentioned this at the opening during our pregame show, you know, this is no longer a district rivalry, but it is important because of the point system. Of course, you have 4 districts in each of the 4 regions, and the 4 district champions in each of those regions gets the automatic berth, but the other way you get in, the 4 other playoff berths are decided according to a point system. So Coach Bedison pointed out, you know, if we don't win the district, we want to put ourselves in the position to be able to get one of those 4 other playoff berths via the point system. And you do that by beating teams that win a lot of games.
Nicola Sumner makes the return for the Mustangs on the opening play of the third quarter. Rafael Francois on the stop after a return of 19 yards to the 30-yard line. Curtis Sears' pass was caught by number 8, Jonathan Coleman. Jordan Floyd on the stop. A gain of 18 yards on the play that puts the ball at the 48-yard line and brings up first down for the Mustangs.
Was that 8 who caught it?
Cal Davis on the carry. The stop is made by Eric Mercier of the Warrior defense, but not before the Mustangs pick up a gain of 11 yards, and that's another Mustang first down.
Happen, we ain't gotta wait.
Who gained that?
16 keeps.
We ain't gotta wait.
Drag down
Who
by
rushed last time? 2.
6-6.
Go red, go red.
Curtis here on the QB keep.
No, hold on. Drag down by 66.
He's taken down by number 66, Wexton Coleman of the Warrior defense. A gain of 6 yards on the play that puts the ball at the 35-yard line. 2nd and 4 coming up for Wekiva.
So Wekiva actually begins the second half like they did the first. A quick pass, 18 yards, and they've gone to the rush 3 straight times now, gaining at least 6 yards.
Mary Thomas on the carry. Eric Mercier makes the stop. Ball is spotted at the 30-yard line. That is a gain of 5 yards on the play, and it's just enough for a Mustang first down.
And again, Wekiva's not doing anything fancy with the rushing attack. It's straight up the middle.
Flag on the play. Dead ball prior to the snap. Offsides called against the Warrior defense. That is a 5-yard donation to the Mustang cause. And it brings up 1st and 5.
So Wekiva catches a break there in addition to their hard, powerful, physical up the middle running here. And by the way, Wekiva did not commit a penalty in that first half.
Pass is complete from Brendan Sear to number 28, Assad Wassim. Tackle is made by Tyler Jones. And now before the Mustangs get down to the 3-yard line, 1st and goal.
And Wekiva not only is continuing to rush straight up the middle, relying on physical and force of will, but they are also remaining with the no huddle.
Mary Thomas on the carry. The tackle is made by Jaden Floyd. No gain on the play, perhaps a loss of 1. 2nd and goal from the 4.
Wekiva's only used 2.5 minutes off the clock here, moving the ball almost 70 yards. Who rushed that? 34.
Number 34, Thomas sneaks into the end zone for a Mustang touchdown.
What was the distance? 4 yards. So in that play, Mark, that's the first time they did not run the ball directly behind the center, straight between the tackles. It wasn't very far from it, but it was a little bit of an angle, and that seemed to be a difference there. Just enough of an angle. We're going to get a bad snap here again, special teams. But nonetheless, just being able to run it just a couple inches past where they were when they hit the line of scrimmage seemed to be able to give them, the running back, that angle to be able to move upfield.
Was that a bad snap?
Bad snap.
Fumble.
Yeah, bad snap.
Car magnet.
So again, Mark, I mentioned at halftime special teams has really been the bugaboo, one of the two bugaboos for Wekiva. And again, that's another point. It's still 14-11. Wekiva is now within a field goal, but they would now, with that missed extra point, a field goal ties the game instead of taking the lead, and that might have a role in Coach Bettison's strategy and decision making here when we get down to the last couple of minutes. That was Thomas who ran the last 2 times.
23 on the stop.
Jalen McCallum on the return for the Warriors. Marion Foster makes the stop for the Mustangs. The ball is spotted at the 28-yard line after a return of 9 yards. That is where the Warriors will begin the first and 10.
Where are they? 28. Okay, so West Orange begins here at the 28. And again, we talked about momentum at the close of the first half there. Wekiva had several opportunities to convert momentum into at least taking control of this game as far as being able to exert their strength. This time, though, they do exactly what they need to. Great pursuit there along the line of scrimmage. And we've seen most of the plays going right behind the center and between the tackles. That was one of the few that actually were trying to run parallel before going north.
8 on the carry.
We ran the last play. We ran the last play.
It was a shuffle pass from 8 to 11. So QB keep?
Yeah.
So third down now, and again, this is a critical play here if Wekiva wants to continue that momentum. And this time they get some good pressure there.
Pass intended for Jaden Gibson. Marion Foster is there on defense. Ball's incomplete, and it brings up 4th and 16 for the Warriors.
So that shuffle pass must have been for a loss.
Yeah, 8-yard loss.
Do you have the time on the score, Lynn?
Yeah, 9-10.
Thank you.
You got a block!
Eight on the catch, 6 on the return on the stop.
So Wekiva will take over possession of the ball at West Orange's 44. Obviously the best field position of the night.
John Coleman on the return to get the ball into Mustang territory. They'll start from the Warrior 44-yard line.
And a penalty. Another, like you like to say, Mark,
donation to the Mustang cause.
Donation to the. So, I mean, this is about as good a start as possible for Wekiva to the second half.
Flag on the play, offside. It's called against the Warrior defense. That's a 5-yard penalty to the previous spot and a replay of first down.
Of course, if this was the NFL, Wekiva would be right on the edge of field goal territory.
Up by 21.
West Orange committed 3 penalties for 6 yards in that first half. They've already committed 2 for 10. Of course, both of them have been critical. Of course, that set up Wekiva on a 1st and 10, and we're going to get another one here. We ran last time. 2.
Flag on the play. Prior to the snap, offside. It's called against the Warrior defense. That's a 5-yard penalty for the previous spot, and it's enough for Mustang first down.
How much was the run?
3. Davis finds the corner.
City's up by 25.
John Davis on the carry. Jordan Castell makes the stop for the Warrior defense. A gain of 7 yards on the play.
On the ball, let's go.
And we'll bring up 2nd and 3 for the Mustangs from the Warrior 24-yard line.
So, Neil, the hits just keep on coming. Nothing spectacular happening on any one play so far, but the Mustangs consistently stringing together some success, also able to throw the Warriors off their footing and get some yardage off of penalties.
Number 3.
3 offside penalties tonight for the Warriors, 2 of which have occurred on this drive, and it sets up the Mustangs knocking at the door of the red zone here. Here comes the pass, and it is caught.
86.
Pass is complete from Brendan Sear to hold on to Reed. Stop is made by Jaden Floyd just inside the 10-yard line at the 9, and it sets up 1st and goal for the Mustangs as we reach the midpoint of the 3rd quarter. So we'll pause here for an official timeout.
How many yards was that?
15.
So Wekiva, again, like I mentioned, most of that second half, they played conservative. They did not throw the ball. They kept running it between the tackles. And now, here in the second half, they've actually only thrown the ball. They've only thrown the ball 3 times, but they're Sarah's 3 for 3, and he has gained 18. He's gained 54 yards on 3 of 3 completions. So certainly Wekiva's picking its spots to throw the ball very effectively and proficiently here. And now, of course, with 6:21 left, they are threatening to take the lead. Great start to the second half, being able to knock the ball into the end zone, and then, of course, following that up with the 3 and out, getting great field position at the 44. And as you mentioned, West Orange is providing assistance with 3 offside penalties.
Right on the snap, false start called against the Mustangs. 5-yard penalty for the previous spot, and a replay of 1st down.
So the Mustangs, which have been pretty good with the pre-snap organization so far, will finally stumble and give back 5 of those yards.
Yeah, that's actually the first penalty Wekiva's committed tonight. And I'm sure that at least puts a smile on Coach Bedison's face.
72 and 90 on the stop.
Who ran that?
Amari Thomas on the carry for the Mustangs. Tackle made by Damian Randall and Daniel Harrington. Ball is spotted at the 14-yard line. No gain on the play.
So I guess the good news about that penalty is you don't lose a down, and it is 2nd and goal. But we're going to have to throw a passer, I think, if we're going to get back inside that 5. And again, one of the things I mentioned as we get an incomplete here from Brandon Sayre is his performance last week. He didn't really do anything spectacular. He was only 8 of 16.
The pass intended for Jamon Coleman is incomplete in the end zone, broken up by Jordan Castell, and brings up 3rd and goal for the Mustangs from the 14-yard line.
But he only had really one play in which he put Wekiva in a situation they had to dig out of a bad position. That was an interception at the very beginning of the first half. And again, that was a smart play there. Get rid of the ball, live to fight another day. And there you see, living to fight another day. Great route.
The pass is complete into the end zone. As Brendan Sear finds Christopher Reed for the Mustang. Go ahead, touchdown.
And again, a great route run there by Reed, going inside there at the last minute. Sayre with a great lead pass had that ball in the air as Reed was turning. As soon as Reed turned, that ball was about 2 inches from his hands. It was placed perfectly right at the knees in a dot and going down to the ground. So if Reed didn't catch that, there would not be an interception. And of course, with that touchdown, Wekiva takes an 18-14 lead with 4:57 left. Can I get the plays here? I think I missed one up to the pass, the 15-yard pass.
Ice game!
13 on the return. 12 on the stop.
Who you said on the return?
I think 13 on the return.
Taylor Valentine on the return for a few yards for the Warriors. The stop is made for the Mustangs by R.J. Bush, and it puts the Warriors at their own 30-yard line, and that's where they'll start.
So again, 4:48 left.
Come on, man.
That's a run. 22.
What did you get in the next break?
Forced down by 6.
Who's the ball carrier?
22.
Backward pass.
And a 5.
Laterals to Tamari Shaw for a 5-yard gain. Janelle Lynch on the stop.
Goes long, it's picked off!
Picked off by Larry Preston at the 31-yard line.
Well, of course, one of the big subplots so far this season is Larry Preston giving up his role as a starting QB, and there Coach Benison looks like a genius as Preston comes up with that interception. To be honest, that was a poorly thrown pass by Calvez. I'm not sure if he just couldn't see what was going on, but it was underthrown. But nonetheless, Preston doing a great job of reading that mistake and taking advantage of it. Jumping in front of the receiver.
Flag on the play, offsides called against the Warrior defense, 5 yards from the previous spot. It pushes the ball into Warrior territory, 1st and 5.
So we'll now make that 4 offsides penalties against the Warriors.
Oh, come on, give me one. Put the ball away.
34 stop. 56.
Amari Thomas on the Mustang carry. Stop is made by Brendan Flakes and Daniel Harrington. And that will pick up an additional 2 yards and bring up 2nd and 3.
So again, when you get those penalties on 1st down, obviously you shorten the distance you need for the 1st down, but you also give your you open up the options. You increase the number of options that the offense can run. And we just saw that there, a 2-yard gain is not nearly as...
Preston's gonna, or sorry, Sierra's gonna keep it, and he's got the 1st down.
Brendan Sear on the QB keep. Stopped by Jashari Jones, but not the very this of the Mustang. 1st down.
And again, another good decision there by Sear. He saw the opening on the right side and took off right away. It's a 5-yard gain. More importantly, though, as you mentioned, Mark, it's a 1st down. And again, that's where all this was set up by that penalty, because it gives you options, not just options to run or pass, but what kind of run, what kind of rushes you can run. And now Preston's in.
Amari Thomas once again on the carry.
Down by 9.
Tackle is made by Joseph Stravano with some help for Jaden Gibson.
12.
Huff also contributing there. And that puts the ball at the 24-yard line, first down, Mustangs.
Who ran that?
34.
Get your own.
Roy Thomas once again.
5-6 on the stop.
This time the stop is made for the Warriors by number 56, Brendan Flakes.
And again,
Gain
Mark.
of 4 yards on the play, and it brings up 2nd and 6.
And again, Mark, we're seeing a lot more variety and diversity in the Mustangs' rushes here. We're seeing pretty much, like I said, that first half, it was straight behind the center, between the tackles, straight up the middle, one-on-one. Now we're seeing a lot of more angled runs and a lot more stop and goes as well. And we're going to have
touchdown! 24 yards for Roy Thomas, and the Mustangs extend their lead to 10.
There's 24 yards? Yeah, I guess that's out of sequence. So again, that all started in the backfield. There was a slight delay there by Preston with the handoff. And that throws the defensive line. And now in the second half, we have seen Wekiva taking a page out of Wes Orange's book. They have gotten that big play. Obviously, that 24-yard touchdown was a big play in itself.
I'm sorry, 20, because it was 4 then.
However, Wekiva has, well, the second touchdown was a 14-yard pass.
Brian Wilson's extra point is good. 25-14 the score. Mustangs in the lead with 2 minutes, 16 seconds remaining in the third quarter.
So Wekiva scored on a 20-yard rushing touchdown. A 21. Touchdown pass.
Ruby Johnson with a strip down. The Mustangs will keep the football.
Everything's coming so fast and furious, Mark. Having trouble keeping up.
Who originally had the ball?
But as I was saying, Wekiva scored on a 20-yard rushing touchdown, a 14-yard touchdown pass, which was set up by a 15-yard pass, and then a 4-yard rushing touchdown, which was set up on a 21-yard. And now, of course, this is the second consecutive game Luther Johnson's come up with a fumble. They're really not fumble recoveries. He just simply is stealing the ball.
16, stop on 56.
Brendan Sear on the QB keep. Brendan Flakes makes the stop. No gain on the play. 2nd and 10 coming up for the Mustangs.
So with 1:43 left here, obviously Wekiva's come out in the second half. I mentioned in the first half, at halftime there, that really the difference was Wekiva was making the mistakes as far as having the impact. They have yet to make a mistake here in the second half, and Wes Orange is the one making the mistakes. Who ran that?
That was QB keep on the last play.
Where's the ball now? 20.
32.
How many yards did he gain?
None.
So again, Wekiva remains in the offset there. Two receivers on the right, one on the left. They've been pretty much going with that formation for the past several years. Another handoff.
Ryan Thomas on the carry.
And don't expect to see much change with the 11-point lead here as we get to the end of the third quarter.
Tackle for the Warriors made by Jones Pauly, nice. A gain of 4 on the play, brings up 2nd and 6 for the Mustangs at the 28.
Sear looks, has an open man, but overthrows.
Pass intended for number 19, Christopher Reed. Joseph Travato on the coverage. Less than a minute remaining in the third quarter.
So now Wekiva also, a benefit they have, or if you prefer an advantage, is they're pretty much in 4-down territory. You're looking at a 45-yard field goal right now. And obviously if you punt it, you're not going to gain more than about 15 yards.
Brendan Sear handles a high snap and gets it off to Amari Thomas.
30 on the stop.
It's good for a Mustang first down. Stop is made by number 30, Devin Gaines. Gain of 9 on the play that puts the ball just inside the red zone at the 19-yard line. First and 10 Mustangs.
So the pounding around continues. That was what they were doing in the first half there, going between the tackles. They do it again here.
Chad Davis on the play for the Mustangs. Warrior stop is made by Devin Gaines. That's a gain of 2 yards on the play, and it will bring up, gain of 6 yards on the play, and it will bring up 2nd and 4 as time expires on the third quarter, and we head into the fourth. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to remind you that if you have not already done so, if you are depending on a ride to get home from tonight's game, please make that phone call now and let them know that we are in the fourth quarter and we are getting ready to pick up soon. We appreciate your cooperation, especially as tonight we will be looking to button up the campus in preparation for this weekend's severe weather. We appreciate your cooperation in clearing the facility as quickly and safely as possible after the conclusion of the game.
Fourth quarter here, Mark, and you can certainly hear the crowd. Things have changed dramatically. There was a change of
Chad Davis in the end zone for a 14-yard Mustang touchdown.
So, Mark, total yards in that third quarter was 171 for Wekiva, -11 for West Orange. And I think that's all you need to say to explain why a 9-point lead became I believe it was a 14-point lead.
Extra point by Brian Wilson. He's up and good, and the Mustangs extend their lead to 32-14 with 11 minutes 50 seconds remaining in the ball game.
So what was a 14-5 lead at halftime by West Orange is now a 20 25 to 14 lead. And again, you know, I just don't think you can emphasize it enough. Negative 11 total yards for West Orange, 171 for Wekiva. And of course now they come in that fourth quarter and they add the touchdown by Davis. They certainly, again, are exerting their force of will here once they stop making the mistakes, once they stop committing the mistakes. Also, 2 turnovers committed by West Orange, so.
Devin Gaines makes the catch going to the ground. And that will start the Warriors at their own 45-yard line.
So, Neil, a lot of good news for the Mustangs over the last few minutes. A little good news here for the Warriors, though, as they start with good field position.
Yeah, and also, and again, I apologize to the fans out there. Please remember, we don't have a statistician, so it takes a couple minutes to look up all the stats. Wekiva also, West Orange only ran 4 plays in that third quarter.
Julian Caldez will keep the ball, and he is stopped by the Mustangs, number 36, Cedric Blair, for a loss of 2 yards.
And again, we didn't have an opportunity to mention it, but on that last Wekiva possession, Larry Preston was under center for that whole time. Or a good portion of it.
That pass falls incomplete, intended for Jalen Carles.
Yeah, Neil, we talked about that during the post-game interview last week that you had with Coach Bettison, that the removal of Larry Preston from the starting quarterback position was not, as Coach Bettison said, an indication of a performance problem in that position, but rather a desire to use his versatility in other positions. Oh my goodness, look at that hit!
Pass intended for number 13, Gary Valentine, is popped up into the air with a good hit from Tamarian Foster. Ultimately, it falls incomplete, and there's a flag on the play.
Well, Luther Johnson had an opportunity to come up with yet another turnover there.
Dead ball after the play, and sportsmanlike conduct is called against the Mustangs. And so, in spite of the incomplete pass, that play will still result in a first down for the Warriors.
Yeah, and that's the kind of play Wekiva cannot afford. Maybe once they can do it and get away with it, but they can't keep doing those. That's the kind of play that's going to let West Orange get back into this game. Again, there's still 11 minutes left.
6.
The clock just went under 11 minutes, so a first down for West Orange. Again, those kind of penalties, when you commit penalties on first down, it opens up the range of options that the offense has.
Jaden Gibson on the carry, stopped by Jamel Lynch after getting to the 29-yard line. That's enough for back-to-back first downs for the Warriors.
And again, when you get those options, you get back-to-back first downs. That's the play Wekiva needed there. Great timing.
The pass is complete to number 3, Jalen Carles. But Jamel Lynch is there and ready to make the tackle. That'll be a loss of 2 yards on the play.
And that's something else here with only 10 minutes left. We didn't have time to talk about it in the pregame show, but really West Orange has a dynamic duo in McDoom and Carles, and we've only called McDoom a couple of times, and that's the first time we've called Carles all night.
The pass is intended for Carles. It falls incomplete. Larry Preston was on the coverage in the secondary for the Mustangs, and it brings a 3rd and 12 for the Warriors.
And again, when I say that, it's not just the fact, you're not just mentioning, when I say McDoom and Carles' name has not come up, it's not just the fact that they're catching the ball, they just haven't had the ball thrown to them. They haven't been open all game.
Pass is complete to Jamari Shaw. made by Assad Hassim. And that'll be good for a gain of 4 yards. It brings up 4th and 8 for the Warriors from the Mustang 27.
And Neil, I think you don't have a choice here.
Yeah.
You got to go for the 4th down conversion.
Yeah, West Orange is going to have to go for 4th down.
Oh, look at him coming from below.
6 on the side.
West Orange is going to have to go for the first down on 4th down the rest of the way. Great defense there. Again, Luther Johnson getting his numbers in the middle.
And Janelle Lynch gets credit for the sack there on 4th down. That will turn the ball over on downs to the Mustangs. And Wekiva will start from their own 23-yard line. Make it a 28.
So now Wekiva in a position to kill as much of this clock. Of course, when you rip off, what's that, 13 yards, you're equally damaging with the game.
Larry Thomas on the run for the Mustangs, and that is good for Wekiva. First down.
14 yards.
Gain of 14 on the play, ball spotted at the 42-yard line.
So, and we've mentioned it all throughout the game here, but in particular in the second half as Wekiva is really taking control, exerted their play, what they do well.
Not by nobody.
Been a great model of rushing by committee here.
Thomas on the play for a gain of nothing. 2nd and 10.
So Wekiva, as they have throughout this season so far, remain in the offset with a tight end. 3 receivers in, and they're going to remain on the ground here.
I'll say it again at the next step also.
Again, another solid run, just straight up the middle, getting
34 stop by 90.
physical penetration on the offensive line's part.
Larry Thomas on the carry. The stop made by Daniel Harrington after a gain of 5 yards, and that brings up 3rd and 5 for the Mustangs from their own 47-yard line.
So I would say right now with 7.5 minutes left, West Orange absolutely has to stop this first down, and they're not going to. And that pretty much sums up the game, especially the third quarter here, just Wekiva physically overpowering West Orange.
Chad Davis on the carry. The stop is made by number 90, Daniel Harrington, but not before Davis picks up the Mustang first down. Chad Davis in trouble on an outside route. He's brought down by Jaden Floyd. It'll be a loss on the play. Ladies and gentlemen, again, a reminder, if you are depending on a ride to get home from tonight's game and you have not already done so, let them know that we are about halfway through the final quarter and you are about 15 to 20 minutes away from needing them to be here and waiting for you in the bus loop. We appreciate your cooperation as our administrators try to get the campus all buttoned up before the storm and then home to their families.
34.
Amari Thomas on the carry.
5'6" and 72.
Tackle is made by Brendan Flakes and Damian Rangel.
So another another 3rd down here being faced by West Orange.
Noted, thank you.
Less than 6.5 minutes left, and certainly have to come up with a stop there.
Stop by 45.
Amari Thomas on the carry. Chris Harrell on the tackle. Puts the ball just inside the original line of scrimmage at the 46-yard line. Gain of 2 on the play.
Oh, Wekiva's going for it here on 4th down, and maybe they're trying to draw West Orange off sides.
let that clock run as much as possible.
Yeah, I think they're trying to draw West Orange off sides here. Try to get that ball a little bit closer and see if they can get the first down, which will be seal the deal, as they say.
And Mustangs will request a timeout with 5 minutes 24 seconds remaining in the ballgame. Ladies and gentlemen, a special announcement from our band program that is running the concession stand tonight. They are very nearly out of food, but they do have one item left, and that is pizza, which they have now discounted to just $1 a slice. So there will be no cold pizza tomorrow morning. We're going to sell it all tonight. $1 a slice at the concession stand right now. If you want to head over there in this final 5 minutes and 24 seconds, make sure you bring a slice back to the press box too for your favorite announcer. The Mustangs are looking forward to hosting next week the Olympia Titans, provided that Dorian allows that to happen. Again, next Friday night at 7 o'clock, Wekiva hosts Olympia, provided we are able to do so. Then the Mustangs have a 3-week road trip. East River on the 13th, Ocoee on the 20th, and Edgewater on the 27th before they finally return home for 3 games in a row. Dr. Phillips on the 4th, Forest with homecoming on the 11th, and South Lake for senior night on the 25th. Brandon Sear on the punt, and that will get down to the 12-yard line, what will be down by the Mustangs. Another 44 yards on the punt.
So Neil, I think that was absolutely the smart play. Milk as much of the clock as you possibly can. Maybe try to get an offside penalty, but failing that, pin him with as much field to go as possible. They are down by, let's see, 18 points, so it's going to take 3 scores that they got to pick up in 5 minutes and 11 seconds.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I don't know what the exact total is, but I do know what West Orange is around 0 total yards gained. So again, they only had 893 in that first half, and now they're down to around 0. Again, some great timing in there by the secondary of Wekiva.
Do you see that the coverage one?
No.
Now, of course, we're going to see West Orange throw the ball the rest of the way here. Down by 18.
Drop.
Another
Hit
incompletion.
it for 3.
Julian Collins' pass intended for number 3. Jalen Collins is underthrown and incomplete. And that'll bring up 3rd and 10 for the Warriors.
And as I mentioned on West Orange's last possession, again, I keep saying this because I just think it's so important. The dynamic duo of McDoom and Carles has been silenced tonight. West Orange has had to rely on the rushing alone. What makes Carles and McDoom so dangerous is that they're really a yin and a yang. The styles are complete opposites and they mesh together well. And Wekiva not only has taken them out of the game as far as you not calling for receptions, but just very few attempts to get the ball to them.
The Warriors will take their first timeout of the second half. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to remind you once again that our administrators are going to be looking to clear the facility as quickly as possible after the conclusion of tonight's game so that they can secure the campus for the impending weather over the weekend and head home to their families. We appreciate your cooperation in vacating the premises as quickly and safely as possible after the conclusion of tonight's game. We do remind you that fans are not permitted on the field at any time, including during the post-game, for the safety of our players and officials.
Intended for 11, 22 had a chance at it.
Call is intended for McDonald. Tony Newsom on the secondary coverage, and we'll pause for another Warrior timeout.
and that ball was just a little too high there for McDoom. But that's again what happens when you get that kind of pressure. Kelvis had to throw that ball off his back foot.
Yeah, and certainly you can't blame the Warriors for that play selection. I mean, it was a good idea, it just wasn't executed quite precisely enough. And so it's going to leave them now looking at 4th and 10 as we've got an injured player down near the 5-yard line, so we're going to pause briefly for that. I mean, obviously, West Orange is backed into a corner here. They're going to have to go for the 4th down conversion in spite of their tenuous field position. But this is essentially the ball game, because if they don't convert here, Wekiva could go up by 4 scores and potentially run out the clock.
Yeah, even a field goal, I think, pretty much puts it away. Obviously, they'll be in field goal position if they can stop West Orange from gaining another 1st down. And of course, you have to remember too, granted, it probably wouldn't be a tremendous amount of time, let's say what Wekiva's been doing when they get a 1st down, then they run the ball 3 more times. But nonetheless, 4th and long, that is going to take maybe 10, 12 more seconds, even if they do gain it. And when you're down by 18 points with just under 5 minutes, that's a tremendous amount of time. 12, 15 seconds is like the equivalent of maybe, 40 or 45.
And it looks like our injured player is back on his feet.
Julian Calvez is shaken up on the play. He makes his way off with the assistance of the Warrior Athletic Training Team.
And Neil, that's a big hit to the Warriors that couldn't have come at a worse time, as the starting quarterback makes his way off, not looking well. I mean, he's not showing any signs of serious trauma, but he does not look like he's going to be back on the field in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, of course, the rule is, and this is at any level, any level of play. If a player is injured, he does have to come out for at least 1 play.
Yeah, but judging by the way he was walking off the field, I don't think he's going to be off. I think he's going to be off for a little more than 1 play.
And I think that's the 2nd player. Looks like an offensive lineman is going out now, too, over there by the marker. The worst possible situation on every level here for West Orange. They're going to run the play out in shotgun and offset formation again. 4 receivers.
12 to 16.
Pass is complete from Tyler Huff to Jaden Gibson. That marks the ball at the 20-yard line, and it is not enough for the 1st down that will turn the ball over on downs to the Mustangs.
And I think that really shows, at least defensively, Wekiva's understanding of the situation. That was something that Coach Bedison talked a lot about during fall practice. Again, we mentioned they lost 17 of 22 starters, but the question really wasn't if they had the talent and the skill. It was more just understanding how to play the game. And of course, you have to be able to analyze the situation. And that particular situation, the idea was get off the field, let him complete the pass, just don't let him complete the pass for more than 12 yards.
Chad Davis runs for 8 yards for the tackle by Tyson Schwalbach. 2nd and 2 coming up for Wekiva.
And Neil, don't look for any kind of amazing theatrics here. The Mustangs are going to stay on the ground and
Stop by 7,
do conservative things.
Yeah, again, understanding the situation.
Chad Davis again on the carry, tackled by Tyson Schwalbach, short of the goal line, but enough for a 1st down pending the outcome of this penalty marker, which is holding against the Mustangs. That'll come back. Ten-yard penalty from the spot of the foul and a replay of 2nd down.
So again, obviously this game is all but over. Wekiva's going to win, but and you want to just kill the clock. That's the tangible or the direct reason. But also, you don't want to run the risk of injury. So they're also understanding the situation beyond just the simple fact that we have an 18-point lead right here. You're also thinking about the future and moving forward.
Pass it.
The pass is complete from Brendan Sear to Fletcher Charles. Tackle made by Jaden Floyd. That puts the ball at the 12-yard line for a gain of 10 yards. That undoes the holding penalty, and it brings up 3rd and 2. Amari Thomas on the carry for the Mustangs. First down on the tackle. Gain of 1 on the play, and it brings up 4th and 1.
So, Neil, I don't know what you do here. I think I might just go for it because, I mean, worst that happens is you start him at the 11-yard line.
Well, in the point system, which we did talk about, you don't get any points for a margin of victory, and it is somewhat rubbing it in.
Well, never mind that.
Sear makes the handoff to Amari Thomas, and he is into the end zone for a Mustang touchdown. Ryan Wilson's extra point is good. Mustang lead extends to 39-14 with 2 minutes, 28 seconds remaining in the ball game.
Saw that last week with that high looping kick, and West Swords was not prepared for it. Now Wekiva certainly can run out the clock.
I didn't see you fumble that, man.
It was one of the up men.
What's that?
It was one of the up men.
66 for Pepper, fumble it.
41 recovery, you said?
Yeah.
Lindsay on the spot on the fumble recovery. The Mustangs take over at the 41.
Yeah, I think, Mark, we're going to see the second unit come in here. Preston started to run out before that timeout was called.
Whose timeout is this?
Wekiva. Excuse me, coaching staff threw a ran a reverse on me again. Shared remains in the ball game.
Player was not offsides, called against West Orange, 5-yard penalty, and a replay of first down.
Well, Neil, that's number 5. Just to add insult to injury.
Yeah. It's too bad this isn't poker.
Was this a response to them winning last year?
Chad Davis on the Mustang run.
30-minute stop.
Tackle was made by number 3, Devin Haynes. That puts the ball at the 25-yard line for a gain of 11 yards. And it's good for Mustang, first down. Chad Davis on the carry. Gain of 6 on the play. That puts the ball at the 18-yard line. Chad Davis leading through the defensive line into the end zone for Mustang touchdown.
45 consecutive points by Wekiva, of course, with the PAT. The total could go up to 46. But yeah, Wekiva certainly found its footing here in the second half. See the Wekiva flag flying proudly in front of the press box. Seen that quite often here in the second half.
Brian Wilson's extra point is good. Mustangs have seen a lead of 46-14 with 56 seconds remaining in the ball game.
Isn't that 35? Yeah, that's 35.
Oh, how long was the run?
19. Oh, you're right. I can't add it.
I'd be out of here if it was.
One
You
field
wouldn't
goal.
even be able to turn around and ask me. I'd be down here on the steps. And missed it by 3.
And Coach Benison, a bit odd to me at least, he's standing all by himself at the 30-yard line.
Oh boy. Wow. Look at that.
Recovered onside kick.
Canarian Foster recovers the onside kick. That puts the ball inside Warrior territory at the 48-yard line.
So, Neil, I'm not entirely sure what the rationale for that was, other than just to go out with a bang.
Yeah, I don't know what it was either. Obviously, everybody was surprised. No one was expecting an onside kick.
Well, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition either.
Maybe they didn't want to get anybody hurt to block them.
That's true.
Come over, boys.
The Mustangs will take a knee, and that will run out the clock and take us to the end of the ball game. 46-14 as the Mustangs come from behind in a big way here in week 2, and they improve to 2-0 on the season.
Stay with us, ladies and gentlemen, for some post-game right after we wait for the festivities to conclude. Varsity admin, all drop-off pickup occurs at the bus loop. Is that correct?
We try that, yes. We try to get it down as far as we can.
All right, I will help you to encourage that.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we thank you so much for coming out tonight to support your Mustang and Warrior athletes. Please make sure that you watch our website and our Facebook and Twitter feeds carefully so that you can keep up with what changes may come for next week's game. But we are at this point still planning to host Olympia next Friday, September 6th at 7 p.m. right here at Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium. We do ask for your cooperation at this time. Our administrators would like to secure their campus and prepare to lock it down for the next 3 to 4 days as we wait out Hurricane Dorian. And you can help them do that by vacating the facility as quickly as possible. If you are being picked up by a ride, that will happen down at the bus loop. Please give them a call and let them know that they should enter through the faculty entrance on the north side of campus and pick you up from the bus loop. That is the least congested way to do that, and that will be the fastest in and out for you to be picked up. If you meet them all the way down at the north end of campus by the cafeteria, and again, they would use the faculty entrance to access that. For everyone else, we do ask that you get to the parking lot right after the alma mater and vacate as quickly as possible. We appreciate your cooperation.
As soon as they finish the run. All right, Neil, let's bring it inside the press box as the band wraps up the alma mater, and what was a somewhat tenuous start for the Mustangs turned into a real doorbuster as the Mustangs come on strong in the second half, getting out to almost a running clock, just 3 points shy of that. Another field goal, and that could have been a mercy rule game. So Mustangs coming on in a big way, particularly in the second half. I think it definitely speaks to the rapidly onsetting maturity of Brendan Sear, who we've now seen in his second start for the Mustangs. Did not get flustered by the one interception that he threw, was able to recover from that nicely. And I mean, frankly, the Mustangs were able to cause the Warriors to make more mistakes, and the Warriors also made a few more unforced errors than the Mustangs did that allowed this more significant outcome that I think many of us believed was going to happen from the first quarter.
Yeah, this is the second week in a row, second game in a row. Wekiva has fallen behind early, and they gave up 14 points in both games. This time, though, a little bit different when, I guess you say, the rally started against Winter Park. It was towards the end of the second quarter. They took over possession of the ball with about 6 minutes left. They really didn't do anything until the start of the third quarter. I think also, too, this isn't just a case of obviously maturity and the end result, but in order to get to that end result of putting up 41 points in the second half, it also has to do with the adjustments. It just seemed like Wekiva was a much different team in that second half, if you can obviously say. But going a little bit deeper, as you mentioned, and I said this at halftime, really, the reason that Wekiva was losing, even though they had outgained West Orange by a 2-1 margin, that was mistakes. They had actually only made maybe a couple more mistakes, but it was the impact with which the mistakes were being caused.
Well, and you said this at halftime, that where we really ran into trouble was with special teams. And that turned around and really reversed for Wekiva in the second half, where special teams really started hurting the Warriors and helping Wekiva.
Yeah, and again,
I'm going to leave you for just a moment for some announcements, but let you continue with that.
When Winter Park, when West Orange started giving up those long field goal, those long kick returns on the punt, especially, it also changed field position. And as I mentioned several times, the better the field position, the more options you have, not just in terms of the number or the fact that you can go 50-50, run to pass, but also the kind of runs and passes. Really the turning point, and we mentioned this, was that first possession of the third quarter. And because they had more options, West Orange had to play a looser defense, the coverage had to drop back further, and Sear took advantage of that. Again, it's part of the maturity, but he only threw 2 passes in that drive. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 8 plays, only two of them were passes, but he completed both of them, and they were a total of 39 yards. And you're going to do a lot when that's very efficient and proficient, and of course you're putting your team in the scoring position. The other thing I thought was another big adjustment. This was a very subtle adjustment, though. I mentioned it at halftime. Wekiva was about 50-50 as far as being effective with running the ball. They were running just straight behind the center, between the tackles, straight up the middle, lower the shoulder, not just the offensive line, but the running back who was carrying the ball. It was a very subtle change, but in that second half, they started to run the ball a little bit more off tackle. It was more about 50-50, and I think that really loosened up the West Orange defense there. Again, the ball carrier was getting to that point where you turn upfield just a half a second quicker than the defensive lineman. And again, when you have guys like we do with Thomas and Davis, they're big, strong guys. They're not little guys. They're not short guys. They're guys who are almost 6 feet tall, weigh almost 200 pounds. Then you're carrying 7 yards of force and momentum being built up. When you get to that point where you turn upfield, it doesn't really matter how big or strong your defensive linemen are. You're going to have contact, and the defensive lineman 9 out of 10 times is going to be pushed back.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I think that the Mustangs definitely have a lot to congratulate themselves on for their perseverance, for their ability to bounce back and not get mired down in their relatively poor performance in the first quarter for the past 2 games. But I also think that Coach Bedesim is going to have something to say to them about some improvements that they need to make as they look ahead toward Olympia, East River, Ocoee, and then probably their toughest challenge of the season is coming up at the end of their 3-game road trip on September 27th as they head to Edgewater. Edgewater is certainly a favorite for the state championship this year. Nobody would look at you funny if you picked them. And they are now not only a top contender in the classification, but also in Wekiva's district. So Wekiva has kind of gone out of the frying pan and into the fire, where previously they had the misfortune of geography of being in the same district with Apopka and West Orange, who were both perennial powerhouses and always state favorites. And now Apopka and West Orange the last couple of years have not necessarily had quite as dominant programs, but Edgewater has been a real force coming on, and they are maybe peaking right now, and now Wekiva has been reclassified into Edgewater's district. So I think that Wekiva has to have their eye on that prize as they look towards some tweaks and improvements that they can make to their very good but not quite perfect strategy.
Well, I think the one thing Coach Bedesim will say, and before I forget, again, I can't emphasize it enough. Obviously, when you scored the amount of points Wekiva did in that third quarter, I believe it was 31 points. Again, please forgive us. We don't have the stats. We don't have a statistician. But
well, yeah, you do. It's me. I just announced while I am keeping stats. So to answer your question, yes, Wekiva scored 20 in the third quarter and 21 in the fourth.
So obviously, when you score 3 touchdowns, you're going to have a huge total yards advantage, and it was 171 to -11. Like we mentioned at halftime, Wekiva actually had almost doubled West Orange's. They were actually up, 179 yards to 83. So yeah, it was actually more than double, but it didn't show on the scoreboard. They turned that all around, and then they actually went even one step further, building a 171 to negative 11 yardage. But Coach Bedison talked about, when I talked to him on Monday, and he said, look, we won last week. Anytime you win, that's good. That's a sign, a good sign. You're moving forward. And it did feel like the team as a whole was progressing as the game went on, but even more so, or more particularly, the offense, as we mentioned. It was the first regular season game they ever played. Of course, it was the first game Sears started. And it just felt like as the game was going on, they became more efficient and proficient. And at the core of that was simply the fact that they were not as deliberate in running the offense and being able to execute the offense and being able to put themselves in positions where they could use their strength. They weren't hesitating as much. With all that said, though, Coach Bedison said that's good enough to win the first game. It's not going to win the second game. It's certainly not going to win each game after that. And it certainly isn't going to win us in the playoffs. We are at a good position as far as being able to move forward. That's the goal. You want to move with each and every game. But if we don't improve with each and every game, then what we did in this first game is useless. And I think, again, they did show some improvement. And I think the key is not necessarily improvement, but the fact that you're steadily improving. And so you now have kind of a baseline of groundwork, like a blueprint to work from moving forward from each game.
Yep, so the Mustang, and you're absolutely right, Neil, because the season is only going to get harder from here before we get finally to that stretch of home games that include homecoming on October 11th and senior night on October 25th against Forest and South Lake. The Mustangs have got to continue to work on that improved consistency and also not getting in a hole early, which is what we've seen them do for the past couple of games. But all in all, this is a game that you can walk away from feeling really good about. The Mustangs certainly did a lot right. West Orange definitely made some mistakes, but a lot of those were caused by, again, the superior defensive and special teams performances of Wekiva, in addition to great work by Chad Davis and Amari Thomas on the ground, and Sear managing the ball well in the air, throwing just one interception.
Yeah, and also, just like to say too, again, obviously, we just talked about for the last 5 minutes or whatever, but improvement has to keep being made every week. But Wekiva has a huge advantage in relation to the improvement, and the fact that they have more room to kind of slip here or there because of that defense. And we've seen that 2 weeks now. When they did slip, the defense did keep them close enough until the offense could kind of find their footing and again be able to get to that point where they were progressing with being able to execute their strengths and run what they do well.
Yeah, and we see that happen with so many teams, not just in football, that once the first mistake is made, it all starts to spiral out of control because you lose that confidence, you lose your mental focus, and one small mistake leads to a bigger mistake, which leads to an even bigger mistake. And Wekiva has been able to stop the bleeding quickly when they have had those mistakes
because of the defense.
Regain that mental acuity, and I think that speaks very highly of what the coaching staff is doing with them in their preparation for each game. So we're going to get out of here because we need to button up this press box and this campus, as we are not going to be here for at least a few days. What we know so far is that Orange County is going to be on a hard close from Saturday through Tuesday. Of course, Monday would have been a holiday anyway, so there would not have been any activities or classes on Monday, but we have also announced that Tuesday will be closed as well. It could go more than that. We could see more days canceled depending on the track the storm takes, but at this point, we're still going to operate with the optimism that we're going to be back here next Friday night hosting Olympia, and we will live web stream that as well. We'll hope to clean up the problems we had with the audio hardware and some glitches we had at the beginning of the broadcast, have a nice smooth webcast for you on YouTube and the NFHS network. Thank you for tuning in tonight. My thanks always to Neil Fisher from the Apopka Chief joining me for tonight's game. This is Mark Barchi, the voice of the Mustangs, wishing you a great night and a safe weekend.